There are moments that tear reality open. Moments when everything you thought you knew collapses. Suddenly. Completely. Without warning. This is not a philosophical debate. It's not a theological argument. This is my story. A story of collision. Between pride and grace. Between religion and truth. Between silence and revelation. My name is Daniel Levi, and what you're about to hear changed not only my beliefs but the very core of who I am. If you've ever questioned what you've been taught, if you've ever felt an ache for something more, this is for you. Don't look away. Don't scroll past. What broke me may be what sets you free. I was born in a world built on tradition, a world where questions were unwelcome and answers were carved into stone long before I could speak. In our community, in the tight rows of brownstones in Borough Heights, you didn't ask why. You asked how. How to follow, how to obey, how to preserve what had been handed down for centuries. My parents were pillars of our Orthodox Jewish community. My father, a scholar of Torah. My mother, a keeper of rituals and reverence. Shabbat wasn't a moment, it was the air we breathed. My earliest memories are filled with candlelight, Hebrew chants, and the scent of challah rising from the oven. I was wrapped in faith before I was old enough to understand what faith was. And for years, I believed that was enough. I believed obedience meant truth. My days were filled with study. Not school, but scripture. Talmud, Torah, Midrash, line after line, committed to memory, recited with precision. My mind became a machine, designed to defend what we believed. By the time I was 12, I could hold my own in theological debates with adults. By 17, I was being mentored to become a rabbi. People praised my discipline, my knowledge, my fire. They called me gifted. I called it purpose. But somewhere deep inside, a crack was forming, a silent fracture between what I said and what I felt. Still, I pressed forward. In our world, duty mattered more than emotion. Doubt was weakness, and weakness had no place in the life of a leader. I wore the garments. I said the prayers. I led the youth. To the outside world, I was the picture of conviction. Inside, I was crumbling, but I didn't have the language to say it. Not even to myself. The routine became armor. My beard, my yarmulke, my talit, they weren't just symbols. They were shields. Because if I kept performing, maybe the hollow silence I felt during prayer would eventually be filled. Maybe the God I couldn't hear would one day speak. Maybe this was just a phase. I told myself all those things, and I told them with a certainty that sounded convincing, at least to everyone else. I preached against Christianity, vehemently, boldly. I quoted the Torah to prove Jesus was not the Messiah. I taught my students to be cautious of Gentile lies. I warned families that love for Jesus was spiritual deception. And every time I finished speaking, people clapped. They thanked me. They said I made them feel safe. But the truth is, I wasn't safe. I wasn't even honest. I was terrified. Not of Christians, not of being wrong, but of what might happen if everything I knew turned out to be built on a foundation I never examined. That fear didn't go away. It grew, quietly, ruthlessly, and eventually it found its voice. That voice came from my son, Eli, 17, bold, curious, and unafraid to ask the questions I never dared. Why do we believe what we believe? Why do you hate them if you've never listened to them? Why does faith feel like fear? I shut him down. Every time. I used scripture like a weapon, not to guide, but to silence. Because his questions struck something inside me, something I wasn't ready to confront. I said it was rebellion. I said it was arrogance. But the truth is, he was speaking what I had buried, and I hated him for it. Not out of anger, out of envy. He had a freedom I'd never tasted. One night after another bitter argument, he looked me in the eyes and said words I'll never forget. You're not defending truth. You're defending control. That sentence hit like a stone to the chest. I stormed off, slammed the door, opened my prayer book, but the words were hollow. I stared at the pages and felt nothing. That night I cried out to God, not eloquently, not ritually, just a whisper. Are you there? No answer. Just silence. Deafening, aching silence. And I began to wonder, had he ever been there at all? If you've ever felt that silence, if you've ever questioned behind closed doors while pretending in public, I see you. You are not alone. I lived that life for years, and the breaking was just beginning. But here's what I didn't know. Sometimes the collapse is not the end. Sometimes it's the invitation. And what came next would dismantle everything I thought I knew about God, about myself, and about the one name I had spent my life denying. Jesus. Stick with me. The truth isn't safe, but it's real, and it's worth everything. That Sunday was supposed to be like any other. I had been preparing my message all week. Another fire and brimstone teaching from Isaiah. One more defense against the falsehoods of the Christian faith. My community was present as always. Black hats, modest dresses, restless children seated in rows. They hung on my words. They always had. And for most of the sermon, I delivered what was expected. Until I couldn't. Somewhere between my second and third point, something inside me snapped. It was physical first. A tightening in my chest, a shortness of breath. But beneath that was something deeper, something spiritual. Like my soul could no longer carry the weight of pretending. My voice slowed. My knees buckled. And then, darkness. I woke up to chaos. The inside of an ambulance, sirens. My wife's hand gripped around mine, trembling. I had no idea what had happened, but I could feel something had shifted. Not just in my body, but in the atmosphere around me. It was as if a wall had been torn down and I was lying there exposed, naked before a force greater than I'd ever known. My mind tried to rationalize it. Stress, exhaustion, pressure. But that didn't explain the way my spirit felt cracked open, like something eternal had reached through time to confront me. And I wasn't ready, not even close. At the hospital, they told me my heart had stopped. Over 3 minutes. Clinical death. They had shocked me back, revived me. But while they spoke in medical terms, I knew what I had seen, what I had felt, wasn't in any textbook. During those minutes, I saw a room, not metaphorical, not imagined, real. A chamber of light and judgment. I stood at the center, alone. No Torah scrolls, no titles, no arguments, just me. And one by one, the faces of those I had hurt, misled, judged, appeared around me. Not with anger, with sorrow. And that sorrow broke me more than any rage ever could. They spoke, not with mouths, but with hearts. Their words weren't accusations, they were truth. Painful, undeniable truth. My mentor spoke of my arrogance, my mother of my pride. A woman from my synagogue said I had humiliated her for missing service. And then I saw my son, Eli. His silence said everything. The disappointment in his eyes was a mirror I couldn't look away from. I tried to defend myself. I shouted about obedience, about law, about honor. But even to my own ears, the words sounded rehearsed, hollow, like a child repeating lines he no longer believes. And then, he entered. I didn't need an introduction. I knew who he was. Not because someone told me, not because of the robe or the scars or the light, but because every cell in my body knew. Jesus, the very name I had spent a lifetime rejecting. He didn't storm in. He didn't tower over me. He came like a brother, like someone who had always been there, waiting. And when he spoke my name, just my name, something inside me shattered. I tried to argue, to resist. I told him he wasn't the Messiah, that the Messiah brings peace, that the real Messiah couldn't be crucified. But he didn't flinch. He just looked at me, and I felt seen for the first time. He quoted Isaiah, the same passages I had taught for years, wounded for our transgressions, pierced for our iniquities. I had read them, recited them, but I had never seen them. And suddenly, it was like the veil was torn. I saw a hill, a cross, blood, not an image, a memory, a reality. I could smell it, hear it, feel it. He was there, and he said, I died for you, even when you hated me, and I had hated him. I had mocked him, taught others to despise him, but in that moment all he offered was forgiveness. I fell to my knees undone. I was wrong, I said. I didn't know. He placed a hand on my shoulder. You are forgiven. Follow me. In an instant, the courtroom vanished. We were standing in a garden, simple, still. The air smelled like rain, and he said, Go back. Tell them I am the Messiah. Tell them I love them. I saw 2 futures. One where I returned to my old life, respected, proud, empty. The other where I followed him, lost everything, gained everything. I'm afraid, I whispered. I'll lose my family, my name. He smiled gently. You'll gain me, and I am enough. That was the moment everything changed. I didn't say yes out of confidence, I said it out of surrender. And in that surrender, I found peace I had never known. I opened my eyes in the hospital room, blinking under the sterile fluorescent light. Machines beeped softly beside me. Tubes ran from my arms. And there she was, my wife, Miriam, sitting silently, her fingers clutched around a prayer book, tears drying on her cheeks. When she noticed I was awake, she leaned in. You scared me, she whispered. I tried to speak. My throat burned, but 3 words finally came out. I saw him. Her expression changed. Confusion. Fear. Who? She asked. I paused, afraid to say it out loud. Jesus, I said. Jesus is the Messiah. I saw the color drain from her face. Her reaction wasn't anger. It was heartbreak, and in a way that hurt more. She didn't yell or curse. She just stared, silent, broken. No, she said. You're confused. You're not yourself. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. You need rest. But I didn't need rest. I needed her to see what I saw. I tried explaining what he said, what I felt. The courtroom, the garden, the scars on his hands. But it sounded like madness. And maybe, if I hadn't lived it, I would have thought the same. She stood up, shaking. Please don't speak of this again, she said. Then she left the room. The doctors confirmed what I already knew. My heart had stopped. Technically, I was dead, but they revived me. You're lucky, they said. But I wasn't lucky. I was chosen. Not for something I had done, but for something he had done for me. The days that followed were lonely. Visitors came and went, but the weight of what I had seen stayed with me. I asked for a Bible, not the one I used for debate. A New Testament. A nurse brought one. I opened it at random and landed in John. And there it was again. In the beginning was the Word. I read for hours. Matthew, Romans, Revelation. It didn't feel foreign. It felt like coming home. I prayed, honestly, for the first time in years. Not reciting, not performing, but from the depths. Jesus, teach me to know you. Teach me to live for you. Peace began to flow. Not loud or dramatic, quiet, steady. And with that peace came resolve. I knew I couldn't go back to who I was. I couldn't wear the robe of a rabbi and preach against the one who had met me in death. But I also knew the cost. My title, my community, maybe my family. Still, I had to choose. So I whispered, yes, Lord, whatever it costs. I'm yours. When I was discharged, everything felt surreal. I walked back into our apartment in Brooklyn and it looked the same. But I wasn't. The mezuzah still hung by the door. My study was filled with Hebrew texts, rabbinical commentaries, books I had once worshipped. I ran my hands over the shelves. They hadn't changed, but I had. I tried to open them, but my fingers trembled. The words didn't bring light. They brought memories of pride, of blindness. I sat in the silence for hours, breathing, letting go, asking Jesus to show me how to obey now, not as a rabbi, but as a disciple. I called a meeting with the synagogue board, men I had led for years, men who respected me, trusted me. I walked into that room carrying nothing but the truth. I saw him, I said. I saw Jesus. He is the Messiah. Silence, then disbelief, then anger. You're abandoning us, one said. You're deluded, said another. My assistant Eli Ben David tried to stay calm. David, he asked, are you really preaching Jesus? I nodded. Yes. I can't deny what I saw. I signed my resignation papers that day. The room smelled like old coffee and betrayal. I placed my tallit on the table and walked out. The backlash was swift. The community turned cold. Friends stopped answering calls. Neighbors crossed the street. Rumors spread. He's lost his mind. He's a traitor. My wife cried at night. My daughter shouted in rage. You're not my father anymore, she screamed. Only my son said nothing, but his silence carried weight. And yet, even in that storm, Jesus was near. I clung to his promise. You will lose much, but you gain me, and I am enough. Every day I repeated it, sometimes out loud, sometimes in tears, because in the dark, you need a light to hold on to, and Jesus had become mine. I don't share this story to impress you. I share it because someone out there, maybe you, needs to hear it. You may be where I was, trapped in performance, drowning in questions, holding on to tradition while your soul silently aches for truth. Maybe you've defended beliefs for so long that you don't even know why anymore. Maybe you've built a life on certainty, and yet, you still feel empty. I've been there. I know what it's like to wear a title but not feel peace, to speak boldly but sleep restlessly. And I'm here to tell you, there's more. There's someone. His name is Jesus. You don't have to die physically to meet him. You don't have to lose everything like I did to see clearly. But you do have to be honest. You have to be willing to ask what you've never dared to ask. You have to open your heart to the possibility that the truth is bigger than what you were taught, that the Messiah isn't a concept, he's a person, that faith isn't a ritual, it's a relationship, and that grace isn't earned, it's given, freely, fully, even to the most resistant hearts, even to someone like me. If you've felt a pull while listening to this, that's not emotion, that's invitation. Jesus is near, closer than you think, closer than your next breath. He's not waiting for your perfection. He's waiting for your surrender. So I invite you, right here, right now, to say yes. Whisper his name. Ask him to reveal himself to you. You don't need fancy words, just a willing heart. He met me in my death so I could live. He can meet you in your doubt, your pain, your questions, and bring you home. Inscreva-se no canal e siga Jesus. Subscribe, not for me, but for you, for your future, for the stories still waiting to be told. Share this video with someone you love, with someone who thinks they're too far gone, too religious, too broken, because they're not. If Jesus can reach into the heart of a rabbi like me, he can reach anyone. This channel isn't just content, it's a community, a place for people on the edge of belief, people who are searching, hurting, healing, people like you. Leave a comment, tell me where you're at, ask questions, share your story. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be real, and if you need prayer, I'm here. This isn't just a video, it's a conversation, and I'll keep showing up, because I know what it's like to feel alone, and I know what it's like to finally feel seen. Don't walk this path in silence. You weren't meant to. We're in this together. Jesus isn't a doctrine, he's a doorway. And I pray that today becomes your first step through it. Start with the Gospel of John, not to analyze, but to encounter. Read like you're looking for a person, not a concept. And don't stop, because once you've seen him, truly seen him, everything changes. Not overnight, not without cost, but deeply, eternally, and you'll never want to go back. Thank you for listening. Thank you for opening your heart, even just for these minutes we've spent together. I don't take that lightly. I don't see you as a viewer. I see you as someone on the same road. And if you felt something stir inside, don't ignore it. Don't wait. Follow it. Because the truth has a name, and his name is Jesus. I'll be right here, walking with you, praying for you, cheering you on. Until next time, stay open, stay honest, and keep following the one who never stops pursuing you. See you soon.